we have to do. No. Good to go. Gentlemen, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Ask you all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Timniak, would you please lead us in a pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you to remain standing for a moment of silence. There was another shooting in California earlier this week where 5 people were killed. And I'm going to ask you to keep the victims, their families, and our first responders in your thoughts. And I think as a country, as a society, I saw that pop up on newsprints, but the next morning when I turned to AOL, it was on page 50. And that means there were 50 other stories that were somehow deemed more important than 5 people being shot near a school. And I would ask you to keep in your thoughts and prayers that maybe we can find a way to not be desensitized to this, but be sensitized to it and work hard to eliminate it. Thank you. All right. First up on our agenda, item number 3 is to consider and act upon the minutes of regular meeting October 18th, 2017. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Any suggestions, changes, edits?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, and then we have some recognition, and this is really important so that I don't have to explain why I look like this and how long I'm going to look like this for. We have our recognition of our Fairfield Police Union's participation in No Shave November. And Officer Stahl, if you'll come up and fill us in a bit on what you guys are up to and why I look like this.
Great, thank you. So this is the second year that the police department and its members have been participating in No Shave November. It's a national campaign that has been going on for about 6 years now. Again, second year we've been doing it, but it's the first year we're publicly doing the fundraiser for it since it was successful last year just within the police department. I think the World Health Organization estimates that about 22,000 people die each day from some form of cancer, worldwide rather. And over the past 6 years, the organization that we're donating to, the Matthew Hill Foundation, which is part of NoShave.org, has raised, I think, about $4 million. We are pretty much at $2,700 just in the first 15 days. And I do have some business cards that have our fundraiser web address on there. If you're interested, I do have a bunch for you.
If you could repeat that web address for the
sure.
folks at home.
The Fairfield specific one is, it's actually, we've got a redirect on our website. If you go to fpdct.com/noshave, you'll be prompted there to learn a little bit more about what No Shave November is, a few more statistics that I'm able to ramble off here, and also the opportunity, if you wish, to contribute. So, and I appreciate the First Selectmen's participation in this, as well as the many community contributions that we've received so far.
Well, thank you. And obviously we have you here to, I think it's great that the department is going above and beyond what your
the chief himself is doing it this year as well. So
that's great to see. And also a neighboring town, Westport, is participating.
Yes. Yep.
I ran into a couple of their officers.
And that's the great thing about it is, especially Fairfield, Westport, I believe is the same way. We do have a facial hair grooming policy, so seeing us like this is out of the normal. So it does provoke a conversation, and that's really the point of it, is the awareness, to provoke that conversation and to not only raise the awareness, but raise funds for the prevention, the research, and the education towards cancer.
All right. Thank you. Any comments from the board?
I've been participating in No Shave November for 3 years. This year I decided to make the statement the entire year long. So I think it's good. I think it shows nice camaraderie amongst the department. So I appreciate you guys doing it.
Thank you for recognizing it. We appreciate it as well.
Certainly, thank you for this event, or thank you for this entire month, and for what you're doing for our town.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, and I'll see you on November 30th, because we could get rid of these then, right? This is getting a little scratchy now.
I'll leave these with you, too.
Please.
I wanted to put them around town hall.
All right, thank you.
A whole bunch of stuff.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next up, We have some recognition for Small Business Saturday that is quickly coming upon us. Mr. Barhart, are you here? There you are.
Thank you.
Right.
Just wanted to call out Small Business Saturday, which is traditionally now the first Saturday after Thanksgiving holiday. This began in 2010. It was an initiative launched by American Express. This past year, in 2016, 112 million people nationwide came out to support small businesses on Small Business Saturday, generating over $15 billion in sales. The town is proud to be one of 6,700 neighborhood champions nationwide, calling attention to the need to not only shop local during the holiday season, but year-round, and support our local small business community. We'll be working with the Fairfield Chamber of Commerce to man a welcome station on Sherman Green as part of their Santa Arrival event, which is traditionally the same Saturday, first Saturday after Thanksgiving. We'll be handing out balloons and complimentary shopping bags and providing other knickknacks and free giveaways to encourage people, again, to shop local. Upcoming beyond that, there's another opportunity beyond Small Business Saturday to celebrate local businesses as part of our holiday shop and stroll event on December 7th, Thursday night. We'll have many businesses downtown participating as part of that, offering complimentary refreshments from 6 to 9, offering extended hours for your holiday shopping needs. We'll have an ice carving demonstration and a lot of caroling and musicians that'll be strolling throughout the streets to provide holiday cheer. So again, we welcome all to participate as part of our Shop Local campaign, which not only is celebrated on Small Business Saturday and the holiday shop and stroll, but we remind everyone to shop local year-round. So thank you.
All right. Mark, thank you. We've got a proclamation here that I will give you, but it talks about small businesses employ over 49% of all business employees. 89% of consumers in the United States agree that small business contribute positively to the local community. 87% of consumers in the United States agree that small businesses are critical to the overall economic health, and 93% of consumers in the United States agree that it is important for people to support small business. So thank you for coordinating this. And we have also, as part of this proclamation, we're declaring Saturday, November 25th, as Small Business Saturday throughout the town of Fairfield. So thank you for you and the Chamber for doing this. And again, thank you for December 7th for our holiday shop and stroll, which has gotten to be a big hit. And I'm looking forward to getting out and strolling along the streets of town. Any comments from my colleagues?
No, I think the Small Business Saturday event's fantastic. I'm happy we're doing it again.
It's a great event. Thank you, Mark. Thank you to the Chamber and to all the merchants. It's very important, as this proclamation states, to support our small businesses as creator of jobs and as they sustain our local economies. So that's great information. Thank you for all you do, and we look forward to a very robust local holiday shopping season.
Yep. And Mark, if I could ask you to come up and get the proclamation.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, then we've got a whole series of reappointments throughout this, but I'm going to start with the first few, item 6, which are 3 first selectmen reappointments, and this is for information only to the board. First, to the Conservation Commission, Catherine O'Donnell, a Democrat from 154 Blaine Street, for a term of 11/17 to 11/22. Then B, for the Employees Retirement Board, this one requires RTM approval. John Mahoney, unaffiliated, from 520 Fulling Mill Lane North, for a term of 11/17 to 11/22. And then C, the Fairfield Housing Authority, John Matteo, Republican, 163 Daybrook Road, for a term of 11/17 to 11/22. Then we've got a group of reappointments here that number all the way down to L. Mr. Timiak.
Yes, if you want to put all these together, we can take it up in one motion.
Okay.
Make that.
That okay with you?
I'll second that.
All
I
right.
think it's a great idea. Do you want to read through them first?
I'm definitely going to read through them. So
Okay.
the item before us is to hear, consider, and act upon the following reappointments. For the Affordable Housing Committee, Walter J. Dunn, unaffiliated, 54 Cedarhurst Lane, for a term of 11/17 to 11/21. Nancy J. Lyons, Republican, 252 Village Lane for a term of 11/17 to 11/21, and Cynthia K. Sammarco, Republican, 106 Village Lane for a term of 11/17 to 11/21. Then on to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. Keith Gallinelli, unaffiliated, 110 Halls Highway for a term of 11/17 to 11/21, and Laura O'Brien, Democrat, 178 Glengarry Road for a term of 11/17 to 11/21. Then on to the Board of Health. Henry Yoon, unaffiliated, 280 Riders Lane for a term of 11/17 to 11/21. Fire Commission, William Fitzpatrick, Democrat, 58 Fairmont Terrace for a term of 11/17 to 11/22. Harbor Management Commission next, and this does require RTM approval for the next two individuals. Mark Foster, unaffiliated, 70 Cardinal Hill for a term of 11/17 to 11/21. And Harry B. French, Republican, 78 Sasko Hill Road for a term of 11/17 to 11/21. On to the Human Services Commission, Linda Delorenzo, unaffiliated, for 210 Rowan Road for a term of 11/17 to 11/21. Then on the Land Acquisition Commission, Linda Batchelder, unaffiliated, for a term from 175 Shoreham Village Drive for a term of 11/17 to 11/21. And Michael Widner, unaffiliated, 279 Brookside Drive for a term of 11/17 to 11/21. On the Police and Fire Retirement Board, Ken Brachfeld, Democrat, 2493 Reading Road for a term of 11/17 to 11/20. Onto the Police Commission, Charlene Lebo, Democrat, 284 Berkeley Road for a term of 11/17 to 11/22. Onto the Shellfish Commission, Deborah Wetmore, Republican, 32 Beaumont Place for a term of 11/17 to 11/22. And then our Tree Warden, Jeff Minder, for a term of 11/17 to 11/18. Tree Warden we appoint every year at this time. And then the Water Pollution Control Authority, Quinn Degner, a Republican, 15 Barlow Plain Drive for a term of 11/17 to 11/21. And Kristen T. Dockum, Democrat, 633 Riverside Drive for a term of 11/17 to 11/21. That's it. Any discussion with the board?
I'd like to thank everybody for their willingness to serve the town of Fairfield. Obviously, some of these terms are a long time, so I know it's engagement that you have and sacrifices you're making over multiple years, and I appreciate everybody's willingness to do that. So, that's it.
Mr. Cowley?
I'd like to echo those comments and thank every one of these Fairfield citizens for volunteering their time and their talents to our town. We greatly appreciate that. Thank you for stepping up to serve us once again, and we look forward to working with you during your next term.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think that I want to reinforce to everybody that these are all volunteers, that we could not run the town without the volunteer hours we get from our very qualified residents. In fact, we couldn't afford to hire them, so it's good that they're donating their time to us across the board. I think that if I look at the town of Fairfield, I'd love to somewhere add up all the volunteer hours that people put in, because I would bet that we put in more volunteer hours per capita than any other town out there. I'm just so impressed with the generosity and the volunteer spirit of our community. So with that, is there anybody from any of the names we mentioned that's here that would like to speak or say anything? Ms. Lebo, if you would come up to the podium.
I just want to thank you, all three of you, for consideration on my commission on the police commission, and I want to thank all three of you for the time and effort that you put into the town of Fairfield. So thank you.
Charlene, thank you very much. Anyone else? Any comments in general from the public on this topic? All right, back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you all. Get through the all right. The next up is item 8. This is a first selectman appointment, and this is for the Conservation Commission. And this is Charles A. Rowan, unaffiliated from 8 Philemon Street for a term of 11/17 to 11/22, and he's moving from an alternate to a full member to replace Samuel Boyarsky. Then some appointments. And we can take these one board at a time if that's okay.
Sure.
Sure.
All right, to hear, consider, and act upon the following appointments to the Harbor Management Commission. This requires RTM approval. Cheryl Beacock, unaffiliated, 68 Daves Lane, for a term 11/17 to 11/19, and this is as an alternate. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Next up, to hear, consider, and act upon the following appointment to the Land Acquisition Commission. James Pjura, Republican, 1158 Mill Hill Road, for a term of 11/17 to 11/21. And this is to fill a vacancy for Victoria Frankenberg, whose term is expiring, and Mr. Pjura is moving from an alternate to a full member. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Good.
Any comments from the public? All right, back to the board. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And again, thank you to all of our volunteers and appointments for their service and generosity with our town. Next up, item 10 is to hear an update from the FairTV Commission on the activities of the FairTV Commission and the Cable Advisory Council 2. If you'd please come up to the podium and fill us in.
I have big shoes to fill, and Jerry will help me where he can.
Yep.
The Fair TV Commission...
Please, if you could, please just introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Stu Strelzer.
Your name and
I'm now
address.
the chair of the Fair TV.
Thank you, Stu.
The Fair TV Commission was established by town ordinance in 2015, and we began to oversee Fair TV operations with the intent to establish a sustainable, independent, nonpartisan media organization that would broadcast gavel to gavel, regularly scheduled meetings in the town of Fairfield and events related to town government or the public schools, such as ceremonies, nonpartisan public meetings, parades, and athletic competitions. With the support of CAC2, which is the area council meeting that has several towns involved, the town of Fairfield, Fair TV, delivers about 800-plus hours of primary content programming covering the representative town meeting, Board of Education, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, Town Planning and Zoning. It delivers about 35 hours of secondary content programming, and we're trying to expand as we grow. Today we produce, broadcast, and rebroadcast, and that's all Jerry who does that, we internet stream gavel to gavel, regularly scheduled meetings of the town of Fairfield's representative town meetings, some RTM committee meetings, Board of Education, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, Town Planning and Zoning Commission. We also record, produce, broadcast, and rebroadcast gavel-to-gavel meetings of town bodies not part of its primary schedule, and events related to town government or the public schools, such as ceremonies, public meetings, parades, athletic competitions, referred to as secondary programming. We also stream. We've gone digital. We deliver the content via Fair TV Education, Fair TV Government, and Fair TV On Demand. Education and Government broadcast live and rebroadcast through our local cable providers. Fair TV On Demand provides all residents of the town of Fairfield the content of Fair TV Education, Fair TV Government via internet streams, and we have a website. We've received our grants. We're spending the money. We're buying equipment. We're trying to expand. We're looking forward to the future. If I could also add, the CAC meeting maintains the status quo, which I also attend and will be coming up. And that's several other towns get together and we all just talk about the grants that we get, the money that's been distributed. We've bought equipment, and I think that's pretty much it.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions from the board?
I know a lot of people who comment and let me know that they watch us on TV.
We're very sensitive to that. We're trying to maintain the best quality that we can with what we're working with. and expand and cover as many things as we can so that the constituents can watch Fair TV. They can't make the meetings, that's the best way to see them.
I didn't know you were streaming now, so that's new
Yes.
information I have. I think that's
Yes.
where we're all going in this digital age. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Jerry does an excellent job at all.
Jerry
of our meetings.
Jerry is the power behind the throne.
That's it.
As a follow-on to Selectman Timniak's question about viewership, do you have any statistics on how many people are viewing the programs?
We have a rough number, which Jerry kind of has.
Sherry
Sherry,
Sino,
yes, thank you.
production manager for FairTV. First of all, the cable companies will never tell us about our viewership on broadcast.
Okay.
They consider it proprietary information. However, with our VOD service, we get an idea as to after live viewership,
Okay.
which a lot of times is follow-up from what they might have saw on broadcast, but want to, go over it again.
Right.
An example of what kind of viewership we get with VOD on the most recent Board of Ed meeting, where they were discussing redistricting. We're up to about 1,700 hits on that,
Okay.
which is amazing.
It's a big number. Yeah.
Nielsen does their rating based upon one household represents 1,000 households.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not Nielsen, so I get a little more discreet about that ratio, but I would say that for every one household that we know about, there's a minimum of 50 attached to that.
Okay.
So if we have 50 people watching, that means we have 200, 250 really,
Yeah.
or more.
And Nielsen may be using the entire country as a base. So
Yes,
there's
of
a few
course,
more
yeah.
people than Connecticut out there.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I mean, but, we try to extrapolate our own.
Sure,
It's kind
absolutely.
of a rough idea because we do have people who come and talk to us and kind of give us feedback, so that helps.
Yeah. right.
Do you have any way of telling how many people are watching it live streamed?
Well, that's where we get our, we don't really have information on the streaming hit
Mhm.
per se. The only real information that we get is based upon the VOD because they actually go and access it.
Mhm.
Click, bang, you get a count.
Mhm.
And that's our most accurate way of determining
That's-
participation by the community.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So.
That's good. And while you're here, I had kind of a follow-up, and these might be more for Cablevision, but things I've noticed. You aren't, when you're,
It's a CAC thing.
well, it could be, right. When you're watching Channel 79 or 78, you aren't allowed to DVR that on your Cablevision box, much like when you're trying to watch your Cablevision on your laptop, and you can access, all the other channels. You can't access these channels either. So I don't know, are those Cablevision regulations that keep those two things from happening?
Well, Cablevision doesn't do a stream from us. We created our stream platform.
Could you tell us how to access the streaming shows if
Sure,
somebody
the
wanted to?
easiest way is just to go to our FairTV town website page, and there's two icons. One is a capital and one is a cap, a graduation cap.
Right.
That's education. Just click on it, bing, it opens.
Right, and that solves that problem. I was kind of just wondering why you weren't allowed to DVR from the Cablevision box, so
I don't really know. That's a Cablevision thing.
that's what I thought.
And I'm sure it's not even specific to public access. They have several platforms for reviewing, and, of course, they charge if you want to watch something that's on their VOD as opposed to their regular HBO stuff or, whatever network stuff they run in video on demand.
Okay.
But, it's all part of how they manage their income.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further
Appreciate that.
comments, questions? I think that Fair TV has definitely become part of our institutional culture here in Fairfield. I hear people talking about it all the time. I reference people to go to it all the time to catch up on meetings they may have missed or to hear the actual words that somebody was using at a meeting and if the minutes were not clear enough on that. So I think it's a tremendous resource for our town and for democracy. that we get to see our elected officials in action.
In
So
action.
thank
We're
you.
trying to provide that and keep it going, and we encourage anybody to talk to us and see things that we don't, they see something they don't like, talk to us.
It's a community channel. We welcome the community.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just one other thing, we have established an archive in the public library system. It's not accessible online. The cost just didn't provide it. But we do have a server that you can access from any one of the accessible terminals in the main library or the Fairfield Woods. And the past 8 years of FairTV is all there.
Wow.
So you can go back,
Delve through the
prehistoric
archives.
times and see that BOF meeting or whatever.
Wow.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Again, thank you.
Thanks.
And then next up is to hear a presentation from the Golf Commission on the H. Smith Richardson Clubhouse Building Project. Who's going to step us through that?
Hello, good evening. My name is Ryan Scully. I am the chairman of the Town of Fairfield Golf Commission currently. And yes, I'm here to give a presentation regarding the potential new clubhouse for the H. Smith Richardson golf course. And we were asked to do this to all three governing bodies of the town, to this board here, the Board of Selectmen, as well as the Board of Finance and the RTM. And you guys are the first stop on the tour, so any questions or input or suggestions that you have afterwards, I mean, we're happy to hear from them. And I know that this board has been very supportive kind of throughout the process, and we appreciate that. So some of this information may be old hat for some of you, but I'm happy to go through it again. So just to begin, just a quick history and timeline of the golf course and the clubhouse. The golf course itself and the clubhouse were opened in 1972. And actually no renovations of really any kind and no major renovations have been made since 1972 on the clubhouse, so you can probably guess on what kind of condition that it's getting in at this point. In 2008, a renovation and feasibility study was conducted, and I believe that this board and all the governing bodies have had copies of that for obviously some time now. In 2014, the Town Facilities Commission formed a renovation subcommittee for the H. Smith Richardson Clubhouse and provided recommendations and improvements. That's included in this, and we'll touch on it a little more as I go through, but that's included in the appendices here, and I think that's a really great report, kind of detailing some of the issues and problems that the clubhouse is currently in, and that was obviously done 3 years ago. In 2017, this Board of Selectmen approved the members of the H. Smith Richardson Clubhouse Building Committee, subject to RTM approval. The RTM has not yet approved the building committee, but this board has. And you guys also approved a $250,000 appropriation for the costs associated with the planning, designing, and investigation about the clubhouse and the cart barn and other site improvements. That, of course, is subject to Board of Finance and RTM approval, and neither of those bodies has yet to approve that, but I believe that will be on their agenda in the coming months, at least we hope so. It's just a brief overview about the current clubhouse design. It's just a simple concrete block structure, 1 story, 7,400 square feet. It includes a pro shop, men's and ladies' locker room, 2 offices and storage rooms, as well as a restaurant, bar, kitchen, and a covered terrace. There's a standalone boiler building that provides the heating for the clubhouse. That's outside, and also obviously it's a septic system up there since there's no sewer lines. So I'll go over just kind of briefly the clubhouse and the carport condition, and I think this report will be available online, and I know you guys have had it for some time. So, and like I said, the 2014 Town Facilities Commission, which their overall summary was the clubhouse and grounds are in desperate need of repair. Some of the major high points that they found were all major mechanicals are inefficient and failing. This includes the HVAC system, the plumbing, the electrical, and the septic. There's single pane windows, so it's certainly not energy efficient, and those are failing as well. In fact, I think when they built it, it wasn't really properly insulated for the winter. I don't think it was ever designed to be a 12-month facility when they originally built it in 1972. So obviously it's very expensive to heat during the winter. The roof is well beyond its useful life and failing. The kitchen is undersized, and the septic system is also failing. I would invite anyone on this board or anyone on any board to come to the clubhouse and go into the ladies and the men's bathrooms, and you'll notice right away that the septic is failing because the smell's pretty overpowering as soon as you walk in those doors. So, and you'll see a lot of pictures in here that we attached, but it kind of doesn't do it justice. You really have to go in to see it. I'm not sure how much you all frequent the golf course, but the cart barn where we hold the carts is undersized and improperly configured, as it only has one in and one out, doesn't have a through, so you have to pull the carts in and back the carts out. And more importantly, the roof currently is failing and leaking. It's actually leaking pretty badly, and that's become increasingly important because the town just put out to bid and accepted a new fleet of carts that are coming in on a new lease. So we're going to be putting brand new carts with GPS and all the bells and whistles into a cart barn that really isn't big enough to hold them, and also, could potentially cause additional damage to them because it's leaking and not being kept properly. So I think all that is super important for the clubhouse and the cart barn condition. So the Golf Commission has received a lot of questions about the building and what's planning on going up there. I don't really think that's the Golf Commission's role in this, and I think it's important to keep that in mind. And these are really all questions that the building committee kind of will answer after they're formed and after they're appropriated the money. And some of those questions would be, should the clubhouse be renovated or completely just torn down and starting from scratch? If it is replaced, what should the square footage be? Should there be a facility large enough to accommodate things like banquets and weddings, or should we just stick to golf and their day-to-day activities? The configuration. Where should the kitchen be? Where should the pro shop be? Should we shrink the footprint and make it 2 stories? So we could put a patio, for example, over the top of the 18th hole to have a nice view when you come in. These are all different things that I think the building committee needs to answer. Also, the location, should we reconfigure where it is so we can provide more parking? And also, maybe take advantage of some of the kind of beauty that we have up there. I think that there's a lot of green initiatives and capabilities that this could incorporate, since obviously it's probably one of the least efficient buildings in town, I would guess. So this will definitely be able to, maybe be a solar project or, really incorporate some efficiencies. Another question for the building committee is, should the facilities grounds accommodate non-golfers and winter activities? Like a recreational skating rink or paddle tennis courts, cross-country skiing or sledding or anything like that. Like, could we bring more people into the town up to that area? Because it's definitely not a frequented area by non-golfers just because it's kind of set back. So is there a way that we can get more people up there? I think that's something the building committee really wants to explore after they get appointed. Obviously, they'll explore what the costs are of the various options, how much it would cost to renovate it, how much it would cost to tear it down, and what are the costs if we do nothing. Then there's the options that they're going to have to explore about the operations of the golf course during the construction. How will we handle when the construction is being built? And they'll try to minimize that as best that they can, and as well as the long-term goal of the clubhouse once it's complete. And I know that this board and the other boards have seen the Golf Commission's 10-year plan, which started in 2010, actually ends in 2019. And I think the building committee's findings of what they project for the clubhouse will be a big part of our new 10-year plan that we'll probably start working on in the next year or so. So I think that's an important key to that is, what do we see for the golf course long-term, and what's the long-term return on investment for the clubhouse and the golf course? They'll obviously explore timing, what the different lengths are for each of those different options, and what the target date and start date is. I think some of the potential impact from a clubhouse renovation for the towns are pretty significant. The potential benefits are obviously to improve a town assessment and amenities for Fairfield residents, to increase both resident and non-resident rounds at the course, to potentially expand the facility to a viable 12-month-year operation, which now it's really only 9. We have the opportunity for additional green and solar installations, and I think probably most importantly, to update it to current ADA and modern building code standards, which it's definitely not now. So I think that's an important key. I think there's a lot of potential revenue increases that could come along with it. That includes the number of rounds, and especially non-resident rounds, where we're obviously competing with courses like Tasha Knowles, Oak Hills, Sterling Farms for those non-resident people. And I think our clubhouse is a detriment to that right now, whereas if we have a nicer facility, we will attract more non-resident rounds, which is really important because they obviously pay a bit more than the Fairfield residents do to play there. So I think it's important to attract those folks, and I think a new clubhouse will do that. I think it'll obviously increase the competitive bidding for the concessionaire and the rent that we'll receive. I would assume that we would get multiple bids on a brand-new facility with a brand-new kitchen, and that would inevitably lead to increased rent that the town would receive from whatever the concessionaire would be up there from what we currently receive. Obviously, the opportunity for off-season revenue, too, whether or not it's an indoor skating rink or a paddle tennis or cross-country skiing or snowshoeing or whatever the building committee came up with, I think that's an opportunity to bring additional revenue into the town because the town could get cuts of those programs depending on what they are as we move forward. There's a lot of cost savings associated with this as well. Definitely lower maintenance fees because we spend a lot of money maintaining it right now. I think the maintenance crews are probably fixing the boiler like pretty much every week during the winter time. Higher energy efficiency. I mean, I'm sure the town's spending a tremendous amount of money on heating and cooling that facility based on the fact that it's not energy efficient. This would obviously solve a lot of those problems. If they decrease the footprint, made it smaller, I think that would make it a lot less expensive to operate. And there's obviously a big opportunity to consider private investment from a concessionaire or from a third party. Like the Parks and Rec did a great job with the Fairfield tennis bubble, having private investment come in, assist with that in exchange for a long-term lease. I think that's something the building committee could definitely explore with a concessionaire. Other clubhouses and courses have done that in Fairfield County. So I think that's something they could definitely explore as we move forward. So I know I'm probably kind of droning on, but the uses of the appropriated funds that this Board of Selectmen already approved, the $250,000, would be the planning, designing, and obtaining cost estimates for the renovations or replacement of the clubhouse, and for other on-site ground improvements, as well as the authorizing and issuing of bonds for the future financing and appropriation. The $250,000 would be used to engage the appropriate experts, such as the owner's representative, the architect, the engineer, and would also develop and recommend a plan for consideration by the appropriate town body. So that $250,000 that you all have already approved is kind of the first step in answering a lot of the key questions that we already kind of went over. And I think that a lot of people on some of the other boards have those questions. So really just the next steps at this point is for the Board of Finance to approve the $250,000, for the RTM to approve your appointees and actually seat the building committee, and then subsequently the RTM would have to approve that $250,000 as well. And then after that, the building committee can get to work and start doing all the things that we talked about: prepare cost-benefit analysis, provide recommendations, evaluate alternatives, engage the experts, and hopefully answer all the questions that you have. So that's it in a nutshell. There's a lot of appendices attached to the report that you guys can take a look at. Like I said, I think the ones to focus on are definitely the 2014 recommendations from the Town Facilities Committee. They did a great job going through it, kind of soup to nuts. And you guys can go over that, obviously. And also, take a look at the pictures. I mean, most notably on pages 24 and 25, the ladies and men's locker room. I mean, you can see that they're in a pretty difficult state of repair, as well as just kind of the overall invitingness of the clubhouse. I mean, if you guys go to other facilities, I'm sure you can see when you look at the pictures, you can see the difference. So, and like I said, I would invite anyone to go up there and take a tour and look at it and just kind of walk in those bathrooms, and I think you'll have a strong opinion of why we need to kind of move forward with this project. So that's it. I welcome any questions, concerns, comments.
Any comments from the board?
Thank you for the report. I think it's very well done. I think these pictures will go a long way to show the people who don't get in the clubhouse as often as I do, and see what goes on. I mean, I wish I could spend more time there, to be honest with you, but it is in dire need of repair, and thanks, Ryan, for going into this.
And I can vouch for what you guys said about the volunteer aspect of it.
Right.
It takes a lot of time to do this.
I'm thinking about this. You've got to give 3 reports in the next 3 weeks. That's 3 more nights out, plus the golf commission meetings.
Yeah, so it's a lot of work. But I will say,
Don't talk him out of this.
I also wanted to thank Craig Curley, who's sitting here in the audience today, who's a former golf commission chair, who really was a huge part of putting this presentation together, so I wanted to thank him and make sure that you guys knew the hard work that he did. And I guess I'll also thank Anthony as well, because he obviously puts in a lot of work.
Well, and he's here, right?
But he has to be here, so it's not.
Mr. Kiley, any comments?
No, thank you for the report. It's very useful to get a quick snapshot of where we are in the process, where we are in the approval process, and how much we need to get a project moving forward up there. The building is in disrepair. It's something that we can move forward with, hopefully sooner than later, and put something out there that we can all be very proud of. So thank you for all your hard work.
You're welcome.
Just a couple of thoughts. One, thank you very much for the presentation. I think this lays out things very well from that standpoint. It does raise a couple questions that, as you went through that. One, we've got these new carts coming in. You're talking about the roof and the barn not being able to protect those. Are those carts at risk, and is the town's investment in them is at risk?
Anthony's probably better equipped to answer that than me, but I'm definitely concerned about it. I mean, we talked about it at the golf commission meeting that we just had. I mean, we are getting the brand new carts in, and
So-
I would hate
so
to
my
put them
question-
in to make them at risk, you know.
Well, we can not put them in, but then there's no carts for people to ride around. What can we do to protect the carts?
Anthony Calabrese, Director of Parks and Recreation. We're going to continue to do what we've done. The carts fit in the cart barn itself. We're just going to continue to repair the roof, patch it as cost efficiently as we can without throwing good money after bad money. But until we get that replaced, so that's where we are for now.
Okay. Then you also mentioned an increase in rounds if we have a new clubhouse. Where do we get the increase in rounds from?
Non-resident golfers would be the hope.
But okay. So how much? How close? We already do it 7 days a week now and run pretty well. So you think we get on average what, 15,000 non-resident rounds? If I remember Mr. Curley's presentations.
I believe that's correct. Yeah, it's between 40 and 45,000 total,
Right.
and around 15,000.
Right, because
non-resident
if I
rounds.
remember the presentation, we get kind of 30,000 resident rounds no matter what happens.
Yes. So it would be good if we could bump that 15,000, even if it was 1,000 more.
Right.
That would be a critical number.
Well, when you say that, that really all comes down to dollars, and you might want to add that into this presentation. If I remember, again, going back to Mr. Curley's presentation a few years back, and it was a few years because I was on the Board of Finance at the time.
It was 2008.
The key to our being able to offer the resident rounds at the price we do is because they're subsidized in essence by the out-of-town rounds. So the out-of-town rounds are financially important to provide this benefit at this cost, at this value to our residents.
That is 100%
So when you talk about making this competitive with other courses, you're really talking about both protecting out-of-town rounds and maybe growing that, but that has a real positive impact on what we're able to do for residents. So I think that somewhere in that, you may want to make that connection, because I think that helps define the value, at least in terms of what I picked out of this.
Sure.
I think the other thing, and I'm going to go back to the first paragraph on the charge here, which talks about the committee shall be established to review and recommend a schematic design, obtain cost estimates for renovation or replacement of the Smith-Richardson Clubhouse, golf barn, and other site and ground improvements, including mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, and sewer. When I look at that, that really brings home what I think is important about this, which is protecting and enhancing the golf mission for the course. We've got the top course, one of the top 5 courses in the state, as designated just a couple years ago.
Yep.
We've got a 10-year plan for improvements to the course that we've been working on, and it's been paying off.
Yep.
I think we've got to have a clubhouse that supports that. I don't think the clubhouse has to be a Taj Mahal, and I would, speaking for myself, not the board, when I look at any other functions out there, from skiing to paddleball tennis to anything else, I'm really looking at those to be kind of plug and play, that not necessarily, in this economy, we don't have extra dollars to throw into making this something more than it needs to be. We definitely have to support the golf mission, and I think we have to look at those others as, in school building committee terminology, as ad alternates. If the value's there and if the cost is economical, and if there's an argument for putting in now, we do. If we can set it up so we can add them at appropriate times in the future, that might be the best of both worlds. So we don't slow this project down or overly complicate it, or make it any cost anymore in this economy than we have to. Yet we allow for that expansion, so I think the vision down the road certainly is to, if we can make this a 12-month facility, that's not a bad vision from the standpoint, if we've got this big an investment, we should have our residents be able to use it more than just 9 months a year, and perhaps more than just for golf. And the issue is just one of affordability in this economic environment. So I'm going to ask the Golf Commission, and I think we will remind the building, at least I will try to, and if the board supports me in that, to remind them that we're not trying to build this out any bigger than it has to be in this economic climate.
Yeah, I care. Obviously, I'm here for the Golf Commission, so the Golf Commission, the golf vision is my first and foremost priority. Everything else would take a second seat for the Golf Commission, obviously. We can let some of the other commissions discuss the other things that would go in there for sure. And I agree with you. I think a smaller footprint and a simpler design would actually go a long way to making it more inviting, rather than building a big and beautiful, Taj Mahal, as you said. I definitely don't think the course needs that by any means.
And the town has changed over time, and the initial, some of these requirements or suggestions were drawn up, 5 to 10 years ago. So the world has changed a bit since then. So when I look at bigger dining hall or catering facility, we've got Burr Mansion we've just spent $750,000 on, and we've got Penfield that we spent quite a bit on, and in another sense, we've got the FTC facility.
Sure.
All that we didn't have when some of these things were being looked at and added into the wish list. So I'm looking at that and saying, perhaps we don't need to spend a lot of money building that out since we have these other capabilities, and we certainly don't want to be in a position of competing with ourselves.
Right.
As we look at that. So I think that that's where I'm looking for the committee to be economical, I guess, and focused on what the priorities are. Allowing for future expansion, allowing for things to be added as the town needs them, and as we have a chance to discuss those, debate those, and add those in.
Yes. Cool. I appreciate that.
All right. Other than that, that's all I had to say. Other than I think a really good job on the presentation, and thank you for both putting it together, and as Selectman Timniak said, and thank you for spending your nights out presenting this also.
Right.
My wife doesn't want me around the house anyways, so it's totally fine.
Mr. Kiley?
Just one follow-up that I made a note on. Back on page 5, or slide 5, you were talking about certain systems that are failing, HVAC, electric, etc. Along those lines, do you have any safety issues, in your opinion, up there that we should know about today?
I mean, I don't know if there's anything ultimately that's completely unsafe at this point that would need an emergency fix. I think it could become that, though, if we're not careful and we let it go for longer. But I think at this point, I don't see any major safety issues. Obviously, we'd have to talk to the facilities guys who know a lot more than me. But
If you could come to the podium and introduce yourself.
Sure. Craig Curley, 109 Lakewood Drive, Fairfield. On that last point, I agree with the Commissioner that there currently aren't immediate, imminent safety issues to be concerned about. However, electrical is certainly the one you worry about.
Right.
And that could lead to problems quickly. There are other things like, for example, even in the last week, the heat wasn't on for 3 days. It was 50 degrees inside the building when it was 55 degrees outside, right? And I think you got to start worrying about frozen pipes and other things that could lead to bigger problems. But my understanding is that the town DPW and the other groups that maintain this building are just regularly up there, and they're spending a lot of man hours to try and keep Band-Aids on the facility, which gets to the point about cost.
that's what Jonathan mentioned before.
So I don't think it's imminently dangerous, but I think it's getting pretty close and certainly expensive to avoid those problems.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would think, if I can add on that, thank you, Mr. Kiley. I think the issue for me is that's one of the reasons to keep it simple and focus on the golf mission. Let's get those things all taken care of. Let's get them done as quick as possible. Let's not hold up this project where we're looking at things that are non-golf specific and slow down the project. Let's add those later rather than slowing down these very important updates to the mechanicals and to the structure.
I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, that's the critical stuff, is basically make it safe and enjoyable for everybody up there is the key mission, I think, at this point.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Anything else? Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
And then next up, from the Director of Community and Economic Development, and this requires Board of Finance and RTM approval, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Community and Economic Development. Whereas,
Make a motion to waive the reading.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Barnhart, since we did not read this entire
Appreciate that.
page-long motion,
Yes.
would you please summarize it for the viewers at home so everybody knows what we're talking about?
Yes, I'm here to request your acceptance of a $200,000 grant from the Department of Community and Economic Development, State of Connecticut. This would enable the town to conduct the planning study of the Commerce Drive, Kings Highway area around the Fairfield Metro Center station, including the site itself. There's no local match requirement associated with this grant. We would endeavor to work with the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to hire a qualified planning consultant to look at both existing market conditions, so conduct a detailed market analysis, look at potential development sites in and around the study area, look at whether they're susceptible to redevelopment, and figure out what the build-out potential of those sites would be based on existing zoning, and then look at the economic fiscal impacts associated with that, as well as demands on local infrastructure to assess cost-benefit. This would help inform planning and zoning staff and the commission in terms of any necessary changes to facilitate future development that is desirable and meets the community needs. We had previously gone through a study around the time which the station opened, notably, and that included several workshops that were well attended, a planning charrette. We would envision something very similar to this process. We think it's very useful to have a robust public engagement strategy as part of this, to talk to members of the community, key stakeholders, property owners, area businesses, and involve them in that process. I mentioned that study because notably it did not include consideration of the Metro Center site itself. And that was a conscious decision made by the town, the thinking being at the time that there was an approved master plan for that site. Obviously, conditions have changed. Nothing has come to pass there. The town is very desirous of encouraging commercial development where we can, especially in this area of town. And so we think it's worthwhile to take a closer look, and we certainly appreciate the state providing funding assistance for that purpose. I will also mention that in my conversations with DECD staff, they came down and took a look at the site, project area. I also showed them areas around the existing downtown train station, including the Exide parcel, which is obviously slated for redevelopment now that remediation work has been completed. And we think there might be some benefit to assisting the planning and zoning staff and commission in looking at their land use policies and regulations as it relates to those areas as well. And DECD was certainly interested and willing to amend the scope of work to include that if that's something the town would desire. So I just mentioned that because I think there's an opportunity for us to get the most mileage out of these dollars, and hopefully further planning efforts both by the Economic Development Commission, other town boards, but certainly the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff that have been looking to update their POCD. So,
Before we get into any discussion, since we did waive the reading, if I could just have a motion to hear, consider, and act upon this item as listed.
Make the motion.
And a second?
Second.
So now we can continue with our discussion. Any comments from the board?
No, I think take advantage of the money when they're willing to give it, so I'm in favor of that.
All right. Mr. Kiley?
Yeah, I'm in favor of that too. I guess it does beg the question, is any of this money at risk with what's happening with the state, or is that just unknown?
No, we've been advised that this was money that was appropriated previously before the state. That was my first question as well, given the timing of the announcement, and at that time the state did not have a budget, so they had indicated this was appropriated previously, And so those funds are available for this purpose to facilitate transit-oriented development planning. So again, sometimes the state works in strange and mysterious ways.
Yep. Now, Mark, we've had some ongoing discussions on, when we look at our grand list, our tax base, in terms of what it is, in terms of how we get more commercial product in here. Our commercial occupancy rate is well over 90%. So the idea of if we're going to grow the grand list, will this be taking a look at how we can make that commercial land around the station around the station, more valuable? So in
Yes.
essence, we'd get higher assessments out of that?
Yes.
Would that be one of the focal points?
And obviously, we need to be informed about current market conditions, what the market will support in terms of new development. But certainly there are a number of parcels. This has long been the manufacturing base of the town. The area I'm referring to, Commerce Drive, Kings Highway, so there was a lot of manufacturing industrial present. That area has obviously gone through significant transformation over the last couple decades. We've obviously had office and retail influx, new residential developments, mixed-use developments in the area. And so, but still, there's existing parcels that are underdeveloped or undeveloped, underutilized, and we need to look at ways in which we could incentivize or encourage development, and what those conditions, if there are barriers to development based on our existing land use policies, regulations, what are they, and how can we move forward in terms of creating incentives to allow for that growth to occur.
Okay, because I think it's crucial to our maintaining minimal tax growth going forward to grow the grand list, and this seems like a real opportunity to help give us some guidance as to how to do that.
Yeah, and I think partly too, the purpose of doing a build-out analysis is to understand what the current parameters are, so you know, based on existing zoning, what is likely to occur. Obviously, market forces have a lot to say about that, but then you can look at those factors and what's likely to occur based on existing zoning and determine whether or not you need to make modifications to it. So that provides at least a good starting point for discussion with the community in terms of meeting our community goals.
Okay, thank you. Any more follow-up points or comments from the board?
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We look forward to it. Everybody, any comments from the public? Back to the board. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next up, from the Director of Health. Now, this requires Board of Finance and RTM approval. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Health.
Make a motion to waive the reading.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Given we waive the reading, may I have a motion to accept the item?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, so the item is now before us. Mr. Cleary, could you please both introduce yourself and step us through this, and if you will, give us a summary of the motion, because the folks at home
Sure.
did not get to hear
Sure.
this played out.
Sans Cleary, I'm the Director of the Health Department. This is the per capita fundings received annually by the Health Department. And so this is a statutorily obligated funds that the state provides to the Health Department. So we're seeking authorization to accept those funds. The grant supports 2 part-time positions in the Health Department, and then 3 smaller, like sub-part-time positions, an intern, a data entry clerk that does short-term work for us, digitizing our records for the future. And so we are, this is an annual grant. The department has received it for decades.
Let's accept it before they change their mind.
It's actually we were encouraged to submit our applications quickly.
Yeah.
So I spoke with Mr. Mayor, Mr. Tatro. We actually submitted the application, and the state actually received, since the funds were appropriated in the governor's emergency executive order budget, the full amount. We submitted that. We have already received the funds. The since in the budget that passed, it was cut. But since they've already dispersed the funds, the Department of Public Health is taking the hit of the reduction for this year.
We're definitely not sending any money back, that's
So
for
we've
sure.
got 12% more than we would have gotten if we were slow in
Okay.
submitting our application.
All right, any comments from the board?
No, this vote, yes.
Okay. All right, any comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Mr. Cleary, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good work.
I'm up again next.
Yes.
Okay. So what we've got here. Now, item number 14, also from the Director of Health, and this requires Board of Finance and RTM approval to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Health.
I'll make a motion to waive the reading.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion to accept this item?
I'll make the motion.
And a second?
Second.
All right, that puts the item before us. Again, Mr. Cleary, if you could step us through what this is so
Sure.
everybody at home understands.
This is the
what we're talking
preparedness
about.
funds that come down from the federal government to the state and then to the local health departments that we've been receiving for the past 15 years. The significant change this year, it's a 5-year grant period, so we're seeking approval for that 5-year period. The significant change is that the federal government has required the state to no longer contract with local entities individually, so they are going with what's called a regional healthcare coordinating organization. So the state has selected Yale to serve as that, and so we will be receiving money from Yale. I didn't put Yale in this specifically because that can change throughout the 5-year period. The regional group that this creates gets to decide who the coordinating entity is, but essentially it's a 5-year grant. We expect to receive that funding or some amended version of that based upon what the CDC decides each budget year. So it's similar to the other preparedness grants that we've done where it's a multi-year contract, and we come through and, basically we only receive a certain amount of funding based upon what the CDC approves and the state decides is the amount that's going to be received.
Okay. Any comments from the board? It seems pretty straightforward in terms of the only thing different than many of our grants is that it's a 5-year grant. And we get roughly 1/5 of it each year?
Yeah, it's
Plus or minus?
Yeah. So we've got the $47,773 this year. The state, as best they can predict from the federal government, these funds have been relatively stable with minor cuts each year. So we expect $47,773 or some probably lesser version of that as we go on further into the project. Given the history of the preparedness grants, it kind of goes down. We started at around $70,000 when we first started getting them, and we're going down.
As those monies are reduced, what is the impact on the town and this function?
So we've already, we no longer support a full-time staff person, which we did in the past. Now we go down to a contractor that's working essentially part-time for us, and he's the contractor for several towns in the area. And so we'll continue with that model, either a contractor or depending on the individual who eventually gets hired, maybe we may hire them as a part-time town employee. So that reduction has already happened. We just go with part-time staff as opposed to a full-time person.
Okay. Any further comments from the board?
No.
All right. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you,
Mr.
gentlemen.
Cleary, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, the tax collector. To consider and act upon tax refunds as recommended by the tax collector in the amount of $18,342.68. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No, I checked the number. It's accurate, which is in the folder.
All right, good.
It is.
Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
We are.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Item 16, to hear, consider, and act upon any other business that shall properly come before this meeting. I'm not aware of any.
Wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, good call.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And next, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
All in favor? Oh, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And happy Thanksgiving all around. Come on. But you got a few years on it.
Yeah, I do. Well, luckily it's still in elementary math. I can handle it.